Hi, welcome back. I'm Dr. B, and these are your emotional minutes. And today we're talking about grief. And grief is definitely a difficult thing. It's something everyone will experience in their lives, losing a loved one. Even there's research now that shows that losing a job or losing a relationship actually has a lot of similar experiences as losing a loved one. And currently, we're actually in the COVID-19 pandemic. And a lot of people in the world have lost loved ones and lost family members and lost jobs and even lost relationships, contact with people. So today we're talking mostly about grief in terms of like losing a loved one or losing a job, and really experiencing grief is the most natural thing, one of the most natural things that we as humans actually experience. And typically, in the experience of grief, what happens is people tend to feel that real sort of deep sense of sadness, or missing the person or longing, for a number of weeks or even a number of months. And what can happen for a small percentage of people is those experiences actually continue for very long periods of time, up to a year, couple years, sometimes even decades. There's kind of a sort of an old kind of concept or an old idea about grief that's really inherent in our culture, is this idea that, you've got to process or think through. And I'll hear a lot of people, patients or clients that I see say things like, I never processed the loss. I never really went through it, and I never really thought about it and really kind of deeply experienced that sense of loss. And there's been research actually in the last couple decades that has found that actually that kind of deep sort of processing and really thinking through and really kind of concentrating on the loss can actually be actually detrimental for people's mental health. People sometimes, when they do that, they'll actually stay with those experiences of grief much longer. And a lot of research has actually now shown that what it really comes down to is really a lot of the things that people experience when they experience grief is sort of a loss of identity. You have a job or you have a person in your life, and they really contribute to your sense of who you are. And then losing that can really be difficult for people, of course, because they're losing a sense of their identity, especially for a period of time. And there's actually been some pretty strong evidence lately that times where people might experience those really kind of long-term, over many months, over many years, long-term periods of grief that they just have difficulty getting out of, may be really due to just kind of a difficulty kind of reconnecting with that sense of self, or finding things or activities that give them a sense of self after the loss. And so one of the things that shows some promise is that, really kind of trying to reconnect with activities or individuals or people, just things that really give you meaning and a sense of pleasure, to sort of reconnect with that sense of who you are, and then individuals are able to move forward following one of those more long-term periods of grief that they might experience. So, nobody ever really forgets, say if it's a person they lost, no one ever really forgets the person, or forgets what that person meant to them, but they're also able at the same time to sort of reconnect with some of the sense of who they are, and really sort of be able to re-engage in their lives. If you're further interested in this topic, one real book that I really recommend is called The Other Side of Sadness by George Bonanno. It's really kind of nicely written and easy to understand for any audience. And he goes through a lot of cool stories and talks about some of the research that he's done, and what it's sort of revealed about grief and the nature of grief. If you find that you are grieving and it's really affecting you, I always recommend contacting a mental health counselor. Because grief, again, can be an understandably really difficult experience, especially if it really kind of continues on for many months and even years, and sometimes even decades. So there's people there to help. And this was Dr. B with your Emotional Minutes. Hopefully our topic today on grief was helpful. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to subscribe in the comment box. And we will see you next time on Emotional Minutes. See you then.